Hey everyone, today I'm going to talk about my favorite moving calculators. Now, a moving calculator is any tool that helps you figure out what it's going to cost you on average to move. Now, those calculators, in my experience, can range from things that tell you how much it's going to cost to move out of state, how much it's going to cost just to move based on supplies, so you know how many boxes and other materials to purchase, or what it's going to cost to just move in your local area. So one of the things I look for is what they have to offer. I prefer companies like Move Buddha that give you moving cost calculators, as you can see here, based on so many parameters. I, for example, have a piano, and I always need to know what it's going to cost for not just specialty movers per se, but specialty piano movers, because not all companies will move a piano. Sometimes I do have to hire special movers to do piano moving. Sometimes I have to have special movers for things like arcade games. We have family members who have things like grandfather clocks and trampolines. Other times you have to get special movers for things like alcohol. If you have a wine collection, those are not things that a regular mover might be able to handle, especially if you are moving out of state. So it's very important that you find the best moving calculators based on your needs. So for me, Move Buddha is the best moving calculator I have found. Now, I've moved dozens of times in my life. I have moved from one state to another. I've moved from one end of town to another. I've moved from one end of the state to another. I've moved internationally and back. So it's important that I find moving quotes, especially when I'm just fielding job opportunities or figuring out where we might have to go next, that don't require my personal information. There is nothing I detest more than trying to get a quote using a moving cost calculator. And once you put in your information, it just pops up saying, hey, give us your email, give us your phone number. And then you'll get your estimate. So you think, oh, maybe this time that's actually true. And you put in your email and your phone number, and then bam, nothing happens. It says you will be contacted within the next 48 hours by 17 different sales reps. Okay, nobody wants that. I don't want that. You don't want that. That's why Move Buddha is my favorite. I think it's the best moving calculator out there because you don't have to put any of that information in. If I'm moving from Charlotte to Wyoming, and I'm moving my entire family, 3 bedrooms, and let's say we think we're moving at the end of September, I can then calculate and bam, I get different options. So here are the different options. I load everything, put it into like a pod or a shipping container, and the company drives it from Charlotte to Wyoming. That is going to average about $2,800. I load everything and they drive just in a shipping container. You get your quotes here. If I want professional movers, because I am just so tired of moving tape and wrapping furniture, I can see that my quote's going to cost a little bit more. Now, obviously, all of these are rough estimates. They are not the actual quote because that comes down to what type of furniture and things you have. Nonetheless, you can compare things like Safeway Moving or a pod or moving yourself, all different types of professionals that offer a full service move versus containers versus freight. You can also compare things like rental trucks. What if you want to just drive and see the country with your whole family while moving from Charlotte all the way up to Wyoming? You could rent a truck, fill it yourself, pack it yourself, and this is what it's going to cost you. So there's a lot to like here, not just that I don't have to give them my personal information, but that the moving calculator lets you indicate by state, or if you're moving internationally, or if you just want to know how many boxes you need when you are packing your goods and loading them into that rental truck. On that note, I do like Uhaul for that. So Uhaul technically has a lot to offer here when you look at their website, right? This, much cleaner, much easier, very simple moving calculator. Uhaul, obviously, as the rental company, has a lot more going on with their website. So it's hard to navigate at first, but you can see things like rates and information if you want one of their containers. If you need to, let's say, use one of these shipping services, but then you have to store your goods somewhere. You're moving to another state, you're not going to be there yet, but your goods will. Well, you can use Uhaul to see how much it's going to cost to have all your goods dropped off and stored. You can also check for local moving labor. If you are using something like a pod and you get your quote here from Move Buddha, and then you know, okay, that's roughly what it's going to cost, and you go through them to facilitate the pod, for your family move. Okay, that's great. You get a quote from Pods, but now you still have to pack all your goods and you have to load it. So you can hire local labor to help you do all that if you can't make your kids do it. Now, what I prefer most, though, from the Uhaul site is that you can check out local labor where other sites don't have that option. So I can see what it's going to cost for me to rent a truck if I want to drive my goods myself. I can see what it's going to cost based on local service providers and then be put into contact with them. And I can also figure out how much it's going to cost for packing and boxes. So they do lay out their boxes very nicely with kits. Now, I have found that the kits work most of the time, but you're definitely going to buy a lot of specialty boxes if you have a library or a lot of kids' toys or something. These are very basic pieces. Nonetheless, they do let you purchase all of these kits and return anything you don't use. So you can always overbuy and then return what you don't need. On that note, Home Depot is another great option. So they have one of the best moving calculators only for figuring out what supplies you need. So in this case, it is much more specific than Uhaul. See, Uhaul here, let's say you want the 1 to 2 bedroom kit. So that's 66 pieces, right? It's going to tell you it's going to cost about $315, but here's all the things you get. Limited amount of cushion foam, 1 TV cover, some tape. It's never going to be enough tape. I can tell you that right now. Some wrapping paper and bubble wrap, also definitely never going to be enough. You can use all your towels and clothes as wrapping as well, and it's still not going to be enough somehow. So this tells you what you get. With this moving calculator, let's say I'm moving my house, right? 3 bedrooms as discussed. It is much more specific. How many mattresses and what size? All right. I have several children, so let's say 2 twin mattresses and 1 king bed. That's what we're working with. I also have a kitchen, a family room, a dining room, and a home office and garage. Such a busy house. How many TVs do you have or pieces of art? So a lot of art on the walls here. I'm going to say 5 pieces here, 1 extra large, and then 2 medium pieces of art. Now, obviously, one of these is my TV, but the rest are art. So it tells me exactly what supplies I need and what my total is going to be based on much more specific calculations. As you can see, this piece here, this doesn't have anything for your actual bed supplies like your mattresses. So there's nothing that's going to help you with bedding. There's nothing that's going to help you with your TV or your artwork except for this TV cover. And that's just so it doesn't get dust on it, but it has nothing to do with the damage. So a lot of these here, everything you need. The mattress covers so that you can stack them. The heavy duty boxes with all of these extra components here, like the feet that prevent your TV or your artwork from getting smashed in the corners, because those are what tend to crumple first during a move. So one of the things I really like about this is it's preloaded. It's based on what I need. And if I look at it and I'm like, ooh, only 6 of these large boxes, I'm definitely going to need more. I can just add more right there. And I know what my subtotal is. I can add it all to the cart, check out right away. Or I can print that list right away and I'll know what I need for later. Maybe you want to print that list and compare prices. Maybe you want to print it and compare it over here to what your moving cost calculator is going to be on Move Buddha. So let's see here, 3 bedrooms. How many people moving? 5 of us. Average packer. Let's calculate what it thinks we need. Okay, wardrobe boxes, dish packs. All of this is great. I can download the PDF, same thing, get an average cost. But this is just as limited as this Uhaul box here, right? That does not include things like boxes for artwork, which will always be more expensive. Boxes for your TV, as well as the special protection for your TV, or any specialty moving that you need, and the covers that you need for your mattresses. So that's what really stands out here about Home Depot. Obviously, this is not the best moving calculator if you want to know how much professional movers will cost or what a freight will cost, but it does help you get a much better idea of what boxes and other moving supplies you need. Now, this old house, love this old house, definitely still have a subscription. I like that they have a lot of information here on, how to save money very quickly and what the breakdown of different moving company costs are. So as mentioned, up here with Move Buddha, one of my favorites, their moving calculator lets you pick by state, regular cost, moving box calculator, international costs. Now, if you're moving, it's going to let you find local or interstate movers. Interstate are obviously the ones that help you go from one state to another. And then specialty movers. Let's say, as mentioned, you have a piano and you need to move that piano with a specialty mover, or a wine collection and you need to move that as well. You can find information here about special things that may or may not be moved by traditional moving services. So this old house helps explain what those costs are going to be and why things like interstate movers cost more. You also see a quick comparison here of what the average quotes are going to be and whether a deposit is required. So that's something I also like. That is not something I've seen with other moving calculators, whether a deposit is required, but it's definitely something as the person paying, I want to know. And you have a lot of information here on what these extra services might cost. So that can be very helpful up front. Like the piano movers, they are going to charge an average of $1,000 based on how far they're traveling and what size your piano is. Obviously, with an upright, it's going to cost less than with a baby grand. So this one, though, is much more limited, despite the fact that it has a lot of information in one place. Let's say we are moving from South Carolina. So you have to know, we'll move from California. And then let's say we're moving to Chicago. How much are we moving? 3 bedrooms. And we're going to move in September, end of September. So this old house gives you that quick personalized quote, and you can see what the interstate moving cost will be. However, they definitely are limited to a few companies. You see here with Move Buddha, you get so many more options. Moving calculator, right? Let's say we're moving across the state, and I want to know what those costs are going to be, right? For that same 3-bedroom home, you get a lot of different options here. As you can see, so many options for professional movers, for containers, for freight, and for rental trucks. This just gives you international van lines. So they don't have as many options, but it's still something. And then my least favorite here, moving.com. They don't have a lot to offer. I was very disappointed with this particular moving calculator, but I mean, it is up there, and they do have a lot of reviews for different moving companies that I have personally looked into. But let's say we're moving from North Carolina. And we are moving to Wyoming. Oh my goodness, Cheyenne, Wyoming. And Charlotte. Okay, no. Now we're moving from Chicago. So see, a lot of weird interruptions here. I don't like the way that their website works, and it seems a little busy for my taste. However, that is not my least favorite aspect of this particular company. My least favorite aspect is the fact that you have to enter your personal information to get quotes. And as you can see here, once you do, you consent to being contacted. And that's when these movers, as listed here, will reach out to you and tell you what your quote is. So obviously, these are some of the same movers that you get a quote from here. And if you wanted to get that quote, you'd have to input your personal data, much the same. So it just redirects you to their website. So these, while available and somewhat useful, are not my favorites. If you're looking just for supplies, Home Depot works really well. If you're looking for supplies, local labor in particular, and trucks that you can rent, Uhaul is one of the best moving calculators, but hands down for all of your needs, I would go with Move Buddha. It has everything you need for local, long distance, or international moves.